Welcome to MediaBistro.com's Media Beat. I'm Kevin Alaka, the editor of TV Newser, and we're joined today by Fox News anchor Bill Hemmer. Thanks for coming in.
Kevin, great to be here. Thank you.
So I guess I want to talk first just about your career and how you got started. And when you worked in local news, one of your first big moves was from behind the camera to on-air anchor for sports in Ohio. How did that happen?
I have the Cincinnati Bengals to thank, I think, for that. I really wanted to be a reporter. That was my goal and ambition. And we had a department of 6 guys in sports, and 5 of them went to Miami, Florida for the Super Bowl with the Bengals and the San Francisco 49ers. And I was the one, low man on the totem pole, to stay back in Cincinnati and keep everything in order. And I had this brilliant idea where after the 11 o'clock news and Jerry Springer got done with his broadcast, who was our main anchor then at WLWT, the NBC station, he'd sign off, I'd put on a coat and a tie, hand the tapes to the guys in the tape room, and say, we're going to record the sports for tomorrow to run during the noon show, which is what we used to do then. And some stations still do it, many markets today. And I put on the news director's desk at night, I said, look, here's your sports cut-in for tomorrow, run it if you want it, and if you don't, well, no problem. And I was in my apartment watching and waiting, and sure, it popped up. I was like, those suckers. No, I wasn't thinking that.
Right.
But so for the next 3 months or however long the period was, I kept doing it. No one ever said no. And I would do that, and then I'd go on to my other job till midnight, and then go home to get up and do it all over again. And there was a job that opened up across the street at the CBS station, and they hired me. So
the next big move, one of the next big moves for you was to move to CNN. What was that transition like to CNN and to doing that harder news?
I tell you, I love sports, and I still love it today, and no offense against sports broadcasting in any sense, but I learned early that the learning curve dropped off for me, and there were only so many ways you could score a touchdown. And so I was pursuing something else in life, and I quit, and I backpacked around the world for a year. And this was all third world travel, India and Vietnam and China and Nepal and the Middle East, Eastern Europe, and Russia, and I did it by myself. And I learned so much in 10 months of travel that even to this day, when I sit on the news desk, it enhances my understanding of very complex issues. And the place I returned to was Cincinnati to report in news for a couple of years. And hired an agent, Jackie Harris, who's still my agent today, 15 years later, and she got me an audition in CNN in Atlanta, and I flew down there, and they hired me.
Yeah. And you had a number of roles at CNN while you were there during your career with the network. I mean,
just about everyone.
Yeah. So where did you feel, in retrospect, where do you think you were most comfortable in your career?
I think probably most comfortable either during breaking news at the desk or out in the field covering a big story.
Yeah.
Whether it's Tallahassee or whether it was what was happening in Afghanistan, the early days of that war, or the Middle East, the siege in Ramallah was a big story for us. It was a time in our country's history where we were locked into big news stories, it seemed, just about every month. Stories that would change the course of history for millions and millions of people every time you turned around. I think that started, by the way, in November of 2000. During the election recount, when we all got locked into this news cycle, and a news cycle that was different for all of us. And I still think after the events of 9/11, everything that has come since then, that we are still in that cycle today.
How did you make the decision to leave the opportunities at CNN for Fox News?
I had a chance to go work in Washington, and it just wasn't in me. It wasn't in my bones, I guess. And New York City was, and so I passed on that opportunity, and I met a guy by the name of Roger Ailes who said, hey, you know, I got a little something going on over here. And we got together and talked about opportunities after I left CNN. And it's been a wonderful place and a great man to work for.
When you got hired at Fox, Bill Shine, one of your bosses over there, he said, Bill's the type of guy you look at and say, he knows what he's doing, he's a solid journalist. Could he be even stronger? We think he can be. That was 5 years ago. 5 years later, do you feel like a stronger journalist?
I hope so. I think the strength comes through experience, frankly, and I think that's true for just about any occupation, any job you do. But unless you are gaining that experience and getting it for yourself, then you're not going to grow. I think about some of the big stories we've covered over the past 4.5 years at Fox, and They have been life-changing yet again for so many millions of people. You think about Katrina. You think about the war between Israel and Hezbollah in the summer of 2006. You think about what we just went through in Haiti a couple weeks ago. These are moments in your life, not just as a reporter, but as a human being, that shape you in ways that even you cannot know.
Yeah.
So, you know, to Mr. Shine, my friend, and one of my bosses at Fox, I hope he's satisfied with that.
All right, well, speaking of those big stories, in our next segment, we're going to talk a little bit about your recent trip to Haiti, so stick around for part 2.